you, when I went to law school, I
Go
have to
ahead.
tell you, Tahir, when I went to law school, I thought it was going to be a civil rights attorney, and I did not. I ended up being a legal aid attorney in New York City. I worked at 111 Center Street in Manhattan. I was a public defender. I represented those who could not afford counsel, those who were wrongly convicted, and I worked there for a number of years. My first glimpse when I started being a public defender was a glimpse of the prison industrial system. I got to glimpse mass incarceration and the war on drugs firsthand. It was a very difficult time back then, and it's because of that background that I decided that I wanted to get into the cannabis industry because of mass incarceration to pivot into advocacy to bring this country into legalization is really where all of my efforts have been. And I woke up and realized that I was up against four prison profit, four prison incarceration for black folks and brown people. I mean, those were my clients, mostly disproportionately black and brown people. And that's what I faced straight out of law school at 24 years old. You couple the war on drugs and the mass incarceration, and you end up seeing the prison swelling. And the prison swelled from 40,000 people in 1980 to about 450,000 people in 2004. It was just unbelievable. The convictions were mostly for drugs and possession, some sale, but just small amounts of cannabis would put people in jail for years and years. It was very disheartening for me as a young lawyer. So I ended up getting my career into a different track. I moved to Florida. I clerked for a court of appeals judge. I wrote legal memorandums of opinion, and many of them were published. Many of them were very controversial at the time. I brought my public defender experience to the judiciary, and then I moved to Chicago. I worked for Earl L. Neal and Associates. It was a great law firm. He was a great man. He did many things for many people. He was an advocate for Black people in Chicago. He worked for every mayor in the city of Chicago, from Daddy Daley on down to the Sun. And then I ran for judge. And to me, being a judge was the gold standard in the legal profession. I was very passionate about public service. And I knew from a very early age that I wanted to get on the bench and serve there and see where that took me. So I was there for 18 years. I served in the Daley Center, right downtown Chicago, right across from City Hall. And I sat there for 18 years. I saw the tech industry boom, I saw real estate boom, but judges are not really allowed to get off the bench to handle those kind of issues in business. So I sat there, and then when cannabis started emerging as an industry, as a viable industry, I knew then that I wanted to retire and, work in cannabis. So one of the first things that I did when I retired from the bench was to get involved in working with the Illinois Cannabis Compassionate Care Act, under the governor, the medical program that began the legalization efforts in Illinois. I later became heavily involved in working with not-for-profits. I am on the founding board. I'm a founding board member of the Minority Cannabis Business Association. You've heard of that, haven't you,
Of
Tahir?
course, MCBA is responsible for me getting in the industry, doing everything I'm doing today, for sure.
Yeah,
So thank
yeah.
you for even being a part of that. And like you said, and that really is historic. I think a lot of people don't realize how influential, how many people that is MCBA is really impacted, not only in the business, but people that people that have come out of that movement and that group. So what was it like? What was it the national stage like that made you know that it was time for everyone to organize towards federal policy, not just in different states, especially for minorities.
Yeah, the thing about MCBA is, we were on the cutting edge. We were the some of the first people to enter into the cannabis industry. We had our ideals. We wanted to, see and help as many black and brown people, learn how to start a business in cannabis. To give them an understanding that you don't really have to have a license to be involved in cannabis. There's all kinds of ancillary businesses, such as accounting and legal work and, running a program, like United States Cannabis Council, which you're involved in. And, there's so many organizations. I also co-founded the National Cannabis Bar Association, which very quickly became the International Cannabis Bar Association, which is awesome because lawyers need people to talk to. Lawyers need people to bounce ideas across, and we need to be able to share documents and forms and contracts and be able to understand what the regs are in Oregon, what are the regs in Massachusetts, what are the regs in Colorado. And so we very quickly became the International Cannabis Bar Association because we were getting calls from South Africa, from people in Germany, from all over the world, Zimbabwe, all over the world. Lawyers were wanting to join our group, so we very quickly became international. I mean, it was a heady time, and I met some of my lifelong friends being on the board of MCBA. We founded a job fair at the University of Denver. We brought up some of the younger folks. You were there, weren't you, in Denver? Were you at that event a
So
couple of
my
years ago?
my first MCBA event was the Lobby Day in
Yeah,
2018.
in DC.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and then
Hmm.
again, that experience taught me about, really, I had never had any experience lobbying, had no idea what it was, didn't know the first thing about it, and so that experience was again influential for my career. I'm curious to know. So of course, having the background that you had in, as a judge, advocacy was something that was clearly important to you. So like you said, you started the different associations and everything. But how did you decide what area of the business you actually wanted to be in? It's a big difference from being in the legal career. What was it that attracted you to? How'd you figure it out?
Well, my thoughts were, if it's legal, a lawyer should be involved. And so I really had a lot of pushback from a few people because this was 2013, 2014. I mean, it seems like yesterday, but cannabis was brand new on some levels, and especially for the Midwest. And so for me, I just felt that I wanted to start out in advocacy. I wanted to, find out what was going on with legalization, decriminalization, expungement. So we did a lot of grassroots stuff in, back in the day in MCBA. We went and did rolled up our sleeves and did the heavy lifting. So I knew that I felt that there was a void, though, to be honest. I really felt that I needed to have my own cannabis license. I needed to, try to get licensed in a state. And so I actually applied first in the medical program in Illinois. I wasn't successful then, but I'm in a group now. I'm co-owner and co-founder of Bridge City Collective Illinois. And Bridge City Collective is they're from Oregon. We started in Oregon. We have production, manufacturing, and dispensaries there. We have Missouri. We have Ohio. We have dispensaries, a grow and production in Ohio, and we have Massachusetts, and now we have Illinois. So I'm very excited about Illinois because the laws there are very different. I'm very lucky to have been in the lottery. Illinois has a very exciting program for social equity applicants. Very exciting, program to, share some of the wealth in cannabis industry. So our particular company, we were very lucky. We had a perfect score. We were in a lawsuit. It's been the whole gamut in Illinois. We were awarded a license in East Dubuque on the northwest quarter of Illinois, near Iowa, near Wisconsin, and we're very excited about building out that location. We have other things in the board. We're vertically integrated. We're certainly working in that direction. We have letters of intent out now to towards that end. Our goal is to have a grow as well. Our goal is to have more than one dispensary. Illinois is very unique. And, when they started their medical program about 7 or 8 years ago now, they awarded like 21 licenses to 17 groups, and now I think it's down to 11 cultivation groups. Under Illinois law, the bud tenders, when you walk into the dispensaries, they don't allow you to smell the bud. You get finished product there that's manufactured, under state law. And I'm sure with COVID now, many other states have probably stopped allowing, the smelling of the bud. But, the regulations are real clear as to how that goes. The original 11 cultivators were allowed to have 210,000 square feet of grow. Under the social equity law, the maximum you can have is 14,000 square feet of craft grow. So, it's a different type of arena now, so to speak. But Illinois reached about $1.1 billion in total cannabis sales from January to August 2021. That's a little bit more than 400,000 away from surpassing Michigan to be the third highest market in cannabis sales in the United States. So that's
Wow.
pretty
Yeah,
good
that's
growth.
huge.
It's huge. It's huge. Illinois has very unique tastes. The second highest vapor pen market in the United States compared to other U.S. markets, and the second lowest share of flower in the
Wow.
United States. So it's a very unique market. There haven't been many shifts in the category market since August, but yeah, concentrates decreased slightly from January to August, but vape pens are very popular in Illinois.
Well, first I got to tell you congratulations because
Yeah.
it's definitely huge to for you all to have won that license. Over the past couple years, like we have New York, New Jersey, other places, Massachusetts, coming on with social equity programs, but Illinois really has been the center of a lot of the social equity conversations for the past couple years. With starting the trend for giving money back to the communities, like you all did with the 3R program. Um, in a journey and a point of a lot of contention. What really is your what's been your perspective on the process and everything as somebody having gone through it?
Well, I can tell you, we applied in 2020. We were supposed to hear back, within like, 9 months. A lot of it got pushed back because of COVID. It's kind of hard to keep your team together though when there are a lot of delays. In cannabis, as you know, you've got to build a business. Once you get that license, you want to hit the ground running. You've got to have your business plans. You've got to get the contracts, solidified. You've got to, figure out the local licensing and the local zoning, ordinances. You've got to negotiate commercial real estate leases. You got to, figure out what permits you're going to need, whether you're going to need a special use permit, which is a SUP, whether you're going to need a conditional use permit. You got to manage construction. And it's very hard to keep all your team members together, keep your investments and your investors interested and motivated to continue down that journey with you. So Illinois owes us a lot in terms of, maybe giving a few concessions. Maybe we can have some co-location laws written, so that you can have more than one grow in one facility. Maybe we can get, right up to speed and get those 14,000 square feet, allowances immediately, as opposed to waiting, because you already heard what the numbers were last year alone. So you can imagine that the growth is going to be significant as well. So we want to be one of the first companies to emerge, with our retail store from this program, with new brands. And hey, how do you get there? First, you've got to pick a location. You've got to find a place to build that business. And once you identify, first you have to identify a feasible property that's properly zoned. Can you get approval for special use? Can you get approval for conditional use? How do you get to meet the mayor? How do you get to meet the city council? How do you get to meet the director of economic development? What can you offer in terms of jobs? Are you going to drive around and look for these properties yourself? Or are you going to pay, hundreds of thousands of dollars to a consultant to do it for you? There's no perfect commercial real estate property, so you're going to have to, find something that could be zoned, under the local ordinances. You've got to, come up with allies. You've got to, really, find those landlords that are willing to hold the property while the state of Illinois decides what they're going to, do. Right now, the dispensary licenses are held up in court. There was a hearing yesterday. I tried to reach out to Judge Cobus, but I wasn't able to get a response. But I'm curious as to whether the case was punted again for another month, whether there was a resolution. You need to get these definitive answers, and information is very slow. I left a message with the law clerk. Maybe they'll think highly of a retired judge calling to inquire. Maybe they'll call me back. Maybe not. I don't know.
Right. And
you
that's a
know.
good point. You being able to leverage that skill and history that you have as a judge, being able to navigate, especially since, like you said, those relationships are so important. I really think that it's important, especially for for our Black community, for professionals from other areas to look at opportunities to come into cannabis. But I'm sure that, as much as you were passionate about it from a social justice standpoint, it couldn't have been an easy decision. I'm sure there were probably some people that told you were crazy for pursuing this.
Oh, oh, absolutely. I mean, even my husband had to, really look at it and say, okay, I think this is a good idea. I'm all in. Um, I have a daughter, a young daughter who, I don't know what happened, but I had to convince her, and there were people, who questioned it. But I have to tell you, I have quite a few friends, from, the legal profession, the medical profession, upwardly mobile people back in Chicago, who really, after they thought about it, they said, she might be onto something here. We might want to try to be early investors. And for those people, they were able to double their monies.
That's amazing. Yeah, for sure. I mean, it definitely is one of the greatest wealth creation opportunities of our generation. Who knows? Like you said, you saw tech, all these things come by. Who knows when there will be a whole another chance for a whole new legal industry to be started?
I couldn't take that risk. I had 18 years on the bench. I had 4 years director of real estate for Cook County. I was a lawyer for the Forest Preserve Board. I had about 22 years of service. I felt like I had paid my dues. I had, done my time. And I was really young, actually, when I got on the bench. I was in my late 30s, so I was very fortunate to be able to, get in there, get that experience, get the pension, and then come out and try to do some good in cannabis.
hmm And Judge Shelli, could you talk a little bit about the DEI task force for folks out there listening? I have the pleasure and the honor of actually just officially came over this week. We have a DEI task force that's headed by my good friend, my auntie Linda Green, and a number of great people like Judge Shelli, civil rights leaders, and other folks that are working to try to help inspire accountability and diversity and inclusion in the cannabis industry. Could you talk a little bit about some of the work that you guys have done even before associating with us, and why do you think the task force is so important?
Absolutely. Well, Linda Mercado Green is one of my dear friends. I'm happy to know that she is integral in your life as well. She founded the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Task Force under the Cannabis Trade Federation, CTF. CTF merged and morphed into the United States Cannabis Council. So when we were there doing our work um, under the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Task Force, we went to Denver and met with quite a few owners of dispensaries and cultivations. We toured these facilities and had one-to-one contact and conversation with some of the people that I'm actually now serving with on the board of the United States Cannabis Council. So it's a very incestuous kind of group, if you will, so to speak, because there's a lot of overlap. But what we did in the DEI task force is to make the multi-state operators aware of the diversity of cannabis. That there are black and brown professionals. We deserve, we are seeking a seat at the table. And, we did a scorecard for them to hold them to the promise of diversity, to hire people of color in their DEI programs, and to also having HR directors and lawyers and all kinds of technicians in the cannabis industry. And I've seen a lot of movement, so to speak, since then. One of the companies that we went and toured was Live Well with John Lord at the helm, and it was just a great opportunity to meet these people, and now it's a great opportunity to be able to serve with them on the United States Cannabis Council Board of Directors as a license holder. So it's great. It's been a great ride.
For sure. And with U.S. Cannabis Council, we've had so many opportunities lately to see different types of federal legislation coming through, from safe banking to the CAO to more. What is your overall thought around federal legalization? Do you think that is something that will be, you think, sooner or later, or what's your guess if you had to pick one?
The Schuman Booker bill is it passed the House. It's on the way to the Senate. I think federal legalization, if done right, I mean, I think it could open up a lot of doors, especially banking, which access to banking is a huge problem in cannabis. One of my business partners, talked about how much money she had to carry around, and it's a lot to put on a business owner to be targeted for having large amount of cash in your business. So it would be great if things could be point of sale, just going straight to your account as opposed to having so much cash. I think it'd be great. I think it, can repair some of the harms, some of the ills in society, to have legalization. And I don't know. My best guess is that it's going to happen under the Biden administration. Um, I think it'll happen probably sooner than later.
Yeah. And one of the things that I want to ask you more about, you made such a good point, right? Especially with banking. I think there's some narrative there, not I think there's some narrative out there that having access to banking would only help the largest big corporations. But when you think of, like you said, a minority business operator not being able to get loans, not having to walk around with a big amounts of cash, there's certainly problems. What are your thoughts on that as a minority entrepreneur? Do you think that banking is do you think it's critical, and would it be helpful to your business to be able to have banking?
Absolutely. I'll tell you a story about my business partner. Her name is Portia Mitten. She's the first African American dispensary owner in Oregon, and her dispensary is on the east side of Oregon. So she's close to Idaho, and she moved to Sumter, Oregon. It's a very small town. I don't know if it's got a very large population, but she, she would have to, rent a car to, go get products, and she'd switch her car, and halfway through the trip, so in case she's followed, and she'd have, large amounts of cash with her. And my business partner is only like 4 feet 11. I mean,
Mm.
but she is a mighty person, a force to be reckoned with, and we're very happy to have her on our team. It would have been a lot better for her to be able to, send those funds electronically to the person, to the production company that she was buying her cannabis from for her dispensary. It was quite an inconvenience, to say the least.
For sure. And at this point, you've been in the game for a number of years now. What would you say is the biggest thing that you've learned, and what would you say are the biggest mistakes that you would hope to help other people repeat from what you've learned?
Well, we have a team and we meet every week. We're negotiating long-term leases. We have consultants that we have future payments and obligations to. We have short-term capital raise that we're engaged in currently. There are a lot of moving parts in cannabis, and I highly recommend, a very solid business plan. I highly recommend having a team with diverse strengths and interests. We have, people on our team that have built uh, businesses in other states, so they know what to do. They know how to proceed. They know, that you got to meet with the landlord and try to keep that landlord engaged while the state works out whatever it is that they're doing so that they can issue your license so that you can open your business. It's not the easiest thing to, and not have to spend a lot of cash doing it. It's not the easiest thing to do. But I think that, it's exciting. Long term, I think Illinois is going to be just fine, but it would be such a better scenario if we could, get those licenses issued. In terms of mistakes, I don't know. So far, so good. We've lost a few leases. One of our leases was actually taken by one of the larger dispensary folk. They offered more money. They offered more cash. They got to the landlord before we were able to proceed, and that's a tough scenario. It's a tough pill to swallow when you work so hard to keep all the balls up in the air. It's not
Hmm.
easy. But I wanted to, I talked a little bit about, the dispensary scenario. I want to talk just a little, if I could, just about, the grow.
Absolutely,
'Cause I'm
for
sure there are
sure.
people that, are interested in growing cannabis. The mission is never been more relevant than it is today, and more important, to have cannabis as medicine, to, the revolutionary new treatments that are on the horizon, and to combat some of our pressing problems with pain and mental illness. There, I mean, and then this is the emergence of cannabis. It's a lot safer than alcohol and tobacco. So, I mean, I think that, we're really in the beginnings of quite a few revolutionary things. And I think, once legalization takes place, you know, the DA will probably, allow a lot more research, and that's the problem. There's not the research doesn't occur because of the federal restrictions and prohibitions. So, your production facility, you've got to find the land for that. You've got to build that out. If you're going to, buy an existing building, you've got to retrofit it and rehab it, and turn it into a production facility. Um, you've got to come up with some brands. You've got to do, your homework. Are you going to produce your own brands? Are you going to try to get existing brands? How do you do that? How do you find a cookies? How do you find a Kiva? How do you produce an old pal? How do you come up with a NLVO brand? How do you become the largest producer in the state? All of those things are things that you want to focus on, if nothing else. And every month, you're going to be looking at your results. You're going to be looking at your production timelines. Have you exceeded the month before in terms of total units sold? Do you have gummies? Is there some type of state contest? Were you able to enter that contest? Did you win? Did you come in first? Did you come in second? Did you happen to come in third? I mean, all these things are so crucial when you're trying to develop a cultivation business. Um, so, you want to make sure that you have efficiency in your grow. You want to make sure that the cost per gram is lower than the next person. Are you going to be able to sustain that long term? You know. So it's amazing. There so many people are selling their grows and selling their businesses for millions and millions of dollars. I don't know that we'll be there anytime soon, but people are always looking towards the future, and you want to look to see if you're going to be on the Canadian market at some point 5 years from now. How do you get there? That's a question that's always on our mind. Are you going to have a team that has leadership? Are you going to be able to have a board of directors that can uh, guide you and counsel you? And so it's there are so many moving pieces, but it's a very exciting place to be, and I'm really happy to be there. When I was on the board of MCBA, I wondered if I'd ever be in a position to know firsthand how to tell someone, what to do, to have a dispensary, how to open one, and how to grow one, and how to open a cultivation production facility, and how to make that viable.
Yeah, and it's certainly a blessing. Look at you nail later after putting in all that work. Finally being here and being able to speak from your own personal example. And I think that's something important for people to know. As much as people talk about the generational wealthiness, it's certainly not an overnight thing, huh? It's not a get rich quick scheme for sure.
Not at all. And I want to talk a little bit about that. In Illinois, that was the focus. That is the focus. Giving back to the South Side of Chicago, giving back to those people who've been incarcerated. Opening the doors for those people who have suffered so many years economically. And I want to encourage people to really look at where you are. And if you have a license, there is no shame in taking that license and placing that license on the open market, and finding a social equity company that can purchase it, or finding someone who you think will do justice to the industry. There is no shame in that, because I can tell you, with all the education that I have and all the knowledge that I've gained, there's so many things that you don't know until you know, so to speak. And it's quite a daunting challenge on so many levels. And without a good team, without a plan, and without clear markers for success, it is a very difficult process. And selling your license, there is no shame to that. That in and of itself will grant your family some generational comfort and wealth. And certainly there is nothing wrong with that at all.
Hmm. And like you said, it definitely can. It's definitely something that can be done. And for for folks, I know a lot of people in our communities have gone through these years of stigma, being over policed, like you started off at. How do you explain the benefits of cannabis? Both cannabis business or using cannabis to people like that.
Yeah, the thing about Illinois is that the people that got there first are, certainly successful. They've had carte blanche, full range. They're the multimillionaires today. Many of them, are the people that you're going to be going to for your cannabis. I mean, you gotta get your mass from somewhere. You gotta get your biomass from somewhere. And I encourage multi-state owners not to exclude social equity uh, folk coming behind, coming in the market. We want to emerge strong as a company, and so does everybody. Everybody wants to emerge strong as a company. I don't know anybody who decides to build a business to not be successful, and everybody relies on everybody. It's a very small niche, type of group. Everybody is going to be calling on everybody for help and biomass, just to get the distillate, just to be able to open up your doors, if you're doing production. And people are going to need brands. They're going to need, to be able to get those cookies and the Kivas and the Old Pals, all those names that are so popular on the West Coast. We're gonna have to, there are gonna be new brands emerging in the Midwest. The Huxtons and the lift tickets and the heavy hitters and the 22 Reds and all of these different extracts and just the sauce and everything is social or chill or nighttime relief, the whole gamut. And so you really need each other, and I would encourage that to continue, that the camaraderie that existed with the multi-state operators that exist today. I'd like to see that camaraderie extend into the social equity milieu as well.
No, that's very important. Unity, right? We got to stick together for sure.
Mhm.
Hmm. And is there anything else? What's next for Bridge City Collective? I know, like I said, you're still working on getting things finalized in Illinois, but what are some of your future goals?
Well, we're looking at New York and New Jersey also. That's definitely on the horizon. And, New York is where I started, so I'm very excited about that. The black market there is strong and it's entrenched, and it's gonna be quite an interesting process. But I'd love to be a part of that as well. That's where we are right now, is trying to get things organized to move into that direction as well.
Hmm. Yeah, and can you just Shelly, can you tell everybody where can people find more information on Bridge City Collective? And tell people again where what states and everything you're located in, where they can find you.
Absolutely, we're in Oregon. Bridge City Collective is in Ohio. We're in Massachusetts. We're in Missouri, and we're in Illinois. So
Absolutely.
Bridge City Collective, our website, BCC Bridge City Collective. Um, you can reach me at Shelly Hayes on Instagram, Shelly Hayes on Facebook, and Twitter.
All
Definitely
right.
Twitter.
Perfect. No, well,
Shelly
I
Hayes.
definitely appreciate you coming by, spending time with me today. You have to tell Portia I said hello next time you talk to her, and definitely, just keep up the good work. And again, it's seeing people like you that have been leaders in advocacy. Now you're doing what you're doing in business and have been committed to social justice long before cannabis. you know, it's definitely something that's an inspiration to me. So keep winning out here. We love to see it.
Absolutely. And congratulations to you to hear. I understand you have some new things going on. You have an internship or a fellowship, or I can't even keep up with all the wonderful things happening with you.
Yep, we're trying to keep it moving, and can't wait till we can announce some of this stuff to the world. And again, thank you for coming by. Thanks everybody for tuning in. It's been another week of the Cannabis Diversity Report, and we'll look forward to catching up with y'all soon.
Thank you so much to hear. It's been a pleasure.
Yep. Bye.